What if that nagging feeling in the back of your neck was real? What if those hands reaching out from the dark that you believed were there were there? What if the monster in the basement really existed? And what if there was really something under the bed? Would you have the courage to face your fears?
Hello, brave souls. Today's story is called The Signal. I used to work the night shift at WMDK, a small AM radio station tucked away in the hills outside Millbrook. It wasn't glamorous, mostly playing automated country music and emergency broadcasts from the handful of farms scattered across our coverage area. But it paid the bills, and had always been a night owl anyway. The station was a one-man operation after midnight. Just me, a thermos of coffee, and the gentle hum of broadcasting equipment that had been installed sometime in the Carter administration. The building itself was even older. A converted farmhouse with peeling white paint and windows that rattled when the wind picked up. During storms, I'd sometimes lose power for hours, leaving me alone in the dark with nothing but the battery-powered emergency radio crackling with distant static. It was one of those nights, 3 months ago, that I first heard the signal. It was about 2 hours into my shift when the storm hit. Rain hammered against the windows like angry fists, and the lights flickered ominously. I just queued up another block of music when everything went dark. The sudden silence was deafening. No more humming equipment, no more background noise from the transmitter room, just the storm outside and my own breathing. I fumbled for the emergency radio and switched it on. Static filled the small broadcast booth, punctuated by the occasional fragment of distant conversation. Emergency services, mostly. A few truckers on CB radio complaining about the weather. Normal stuff. But then, cutting through the white noise like a blade, came something else. At first, I thought it was just interference. A low, rhythmic sound that seemed to pulse in and out of the static. But as I adjusted the frequency, trying to find a clearer signal, the sound became more distant. It was breathing. Deep, labored breathing with an odd, wet quality that made my skin crawl. Then came the noise.
Help me.
The words were barely audible, distorted by static and something else. Something that made them sound wrong, like they were coming from underwater or through a mouthful of mud. I leaned closer to the radio, straining to hear.
Can anyone hear me? Please.
My hand trembled as I reached the microphone. We weren't supposed to respond to random signals, station policy, but it sounded like someone was in real trouble. This is WMDK radio. I can hear you. What's your location? Do you need emergency services? Silence. Just static and the storm outside. Then,
Thank you. I've been trying so long.
the voice was clearer now, but there was something unsettling about it. The pauses between words were too long, and was an odd echo, like the person was speaking from the bottom of a well. Where are you? I asked again. I can contact the authorities.
I don't remember. Everything is dark. So dark.
A chill ran down my spine. This was starting to feel like less of a rescue situation, and more like something I didn't want to be involved in. But I couldn't just abandon someone who might be hurt. Can you tell me anything about where you are? Any landmarks? Are you in a vehicle?
I think I'm underground. It smells wrong. Everything smells wrong.
The power flickered back on, and the station's equipment hummed to life. The emergency radio was suddenly drowned out by our regular broadcast feed. By the time I switched everything back to manual control and returned to the emergency frequency, the signal was gone. I spent the rest of the night trying to find it again. But there was nothing. Just normal static and the usual overnight chatter. I filed a report with the sheriff's department the next morning, but they said they hadn't received any missing persons reports, and no one else had reported hearing the transmission. A week passed, I almost convinced myself I'd imagined the whole thing. Storm-induced stress, maybe. Too much coffee and not enough sleep. But then it happened again. This time, there was no storm. I was halfway playing a Garth Brooks song when the signal cut in on our main frequency. Not the emergency radio, our actual broadcast signal.
Thank you for talking to me last week.
My blood turned to ice. The voice was coming through our transmitter, going out to anyone who might be listening to WMDK at 2:30 in the morning, which thankfully was probably no one. But how was that even possible? Our transmitter was locked down, encrypted. Only someone with direct access to our equipment could.
Been looking for you. Waiting.
I yanked the power cord from the wall, killing our broadcast. Dead air went out over the frequency. In the sudden silence, I could hear my heart pounding. My hand shook as I called the station manager, but it went straight to voicemail. Of course it did. It was almost 3 a.m. I tried the sheriff's department again, but the night dispatcher sounded skeptical. They said they'd send someone to check on me, but it would be a while. And that's when I heard the noise outside. Scraping, like something being dragged across gravel. It was coming from the back of the building, near the transmitter shed. I grabbed the flashlight from my desk drawer and peered over the window, but all I could see was my own reflection again staring back at me. The scraping sound moved around the building, slow and deliberate. Whatever was out there was not in a hurry. I tried to convince myself it was just an animal, a deer maybe, or a bear looking for food. But the sound was too rhythmic, too purposeful, and underneath it, barely audible, I could hear something else. Breathing. That same wet, labored breathing from the radio. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number.
I found you.
The scraping stopped. I stared at my phone. My finger hovered over the emergency call button. The text had no sender information, no timestamp. It just sat there on my screen like a threat. Then the lights went out again. But this time, it wasn't the storm. Someone had cut the main power line. In the darkness, I could hear footsteps on the porch. Slow, uneven, like someone dragging an injured leg. The front door handle rattled. I scrambled for the emergency radio, my hand shaking so badly I could barely work the controls. Finally, I found a signal. A sheriff's deputy on patrol. "This is WMDK radio station number 49. I whispered in the microphone. "Need immediate assistance. Someone is trying to break into the building."
Copy that, WMDK. Deputy Martinez is about 10 minutes out. Can you give me more details?
The footsteps had moved away from the front door. Now they were circling the building again. And I could hear something else. A low moaning sound that made my teeth ache. They're outside, walking around the building. I think they might be injured or sick.
Can you see how many subjects?
I pressed my face to the window, trying to see through the reflection. At first, there was nothing. Then, at the edge of my flashlight beam, I saw a movement. A figure stumbled into view. In the weak light, I could see it was a man, or had been a man. His clothes were torn and filthy, and his skin had a grayish pallor that looked wrong even in the dim light. But it was his movements that made my stomach lurch. He walked like his joints didn't work properly, with jerky, unnatural motions that reminded me of a marionette with tangled strings. "I can see one person," I radioed back. "They appear to be injured or ill. Possible medical emergency." The figure turned toward the window, and I saw his face. I wish I could forget what I saw. His eyes were milky white, and his mouth hung open, revealing blackened teeth. But worst of all was the expression, or lack of one. There was no intelligence there, no recognition, just a horrible, empty hunger. "Oh, God," I whispered into the radio. "Something's really wrong. This person they don't look right."
Stay calm, WMDK. Deputy Martinez is 5 minutes out.
The figure, the thing, pressed its face against the window. Its breath fogged the glass as it stared at me with those dead eyes. Then slowly, it raised one decaying hand and tapped on the glass. Tap, tap, tap. That's when I saw the others. More figures stumbled out of the tree line. 3, then 5, then more than I could count. All of them moving with that same jerky, unnatural gait. All of them converging on the station. There are more of them, I radioed, my voice cracking. A lot more. They're surrounding the building. Static answered me. I checked the radio. The battery was dead. My phone had no signal. The things outside were pressing against the windows now, their hands leaving greasy smears on the glass. Some of them still looked relatively fresh, but others were in advanced stages of decay. One woman's jaw hung at an impossible angle, and I could see bone through the rotted flesh of her cheek. But they were all looking at me, watching with those milky eyes. Dead eyes. The window glass began to crack. I ran to the back of the building, hoping to escape through the rear exit, but more of them were waiting there. The back door was already straining against the weight of their pressed against it. I was trapped. That's when I heard the familiar voice on the emergency radio. Somehow, it had turned itself back on.
Do you see them now? Do you understand?
The voice was clearer than it had been before, and I finally recognized why it sounded so wrong. It wasn't coming through the radio speaker. It was coming from right behind me. I turned around slowly, knowing what I would find but hoping I was wrong. He stood in the doorway to the transmitter room, the man I'd been talking to on the radio. His face was pale and slack, with dark veins visible beneath translucent skin. His clothes were caked with dirt, as if he'd been buried and had clawed his way out. When he opened his mouth to speak, I could smell the reek of decay on his breath. I died in the cave-in at Miller's Quarry 3 months ago, he said, each word a struggle. But something brought me back, brought us all back. Through the windows, I could see dozens more of them stumbling on the hill toward the station. Men and women of all ages, some in work clothes, others in pajamas or hospital gowns. All of them dead. All of them walking. The signal, he continued, taking a shambling step toward me. It calls to us, tells us to find the living, to make more. I backed against the wall, but there was nowhere to go. The windows were starting to give way, and I could hear the back door splintering. But you talked to me when no one else could hear. You were kind. Another step closer. I could see the bullet holes in his forehead now, black and crusted with blood. So I'll make it quick. For you. The front window exploded inward, and they poured through like a tide of rotting flesh. But the one who had been speaking to me held up his hand, and they stopped. This one is mine, he said. I closed my eyes and waited for the end, but it never came. Instead, I heard sirens, lots of them, and shouting. Human voices, alive and urgent.
WMDK, this is the Sheriff's Department. We're coming in.
Gunfire erupted outside. The creatures turned toward the new threat, leaving me forgotten for the moment. The one from the radio looked confused, his head tilting like a dog hearing a distant sound. Run, he said, and for just a moment, his voice almost sounded human again. Run, while you can. The signal, it's getting stronger. I didn't need to be told twice. I bolted for the hole where the window had been and stumbled into the chaos outside. Police cars surrounded the building, their spotlights cutting through the darkness. Deputies were shooting at the creatures, but their bullets barely slowed them down. Over here, I shouted, waving my arms. A deputy grabbed me and pulled me toward his patrol car. Are you hurt? Did any of them bite you? No, I don't think so. What's happening? What are those things? He slammed the car door and gunned the engine. In the rearview mirror, I could see the station surrounded by dozens of creatures. More still emerged from the woods. Started about an hour ago, he said, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. Emergency calls from all over the county. People reporting attacks by what they described as sick people or crazy people. But the victims, they don't stay down when you shoot them. Where are we going? Emergency Command Center at the high school. The CDC is sending a team, and the National Guard is mobilizing. But between you and me, he glanced at me in the mirror. I don't think this is something bullets can fix. The high school was chaos. Families huddled in the gymnasium while officials tried to coordinate some kind of response. I gave my statement to a dozen different people. Local police, state troopers, federal agents who hadn't identified their agency. They all asked the same questions about the radio signal, about the voice I'd been hearing. But I could tell from their faces that they'd already knew more than they were letting on. Around dawn, a woman in a CDC jacket pulled me aside. Mr. Thompson, I need to ask you about the radio transmission. How long have you been hearing them? 3 months, since the first big storm in April. She nodded like this confirmed something. We've been tracking similar reports from radio operators across 7 states. Always the same pattern. Initial contact during severe weather, then escalating contact until... She gestured toward the window, where smoke was rising from various points around the county. Till what? Until outbreak, Mr. Thompson. What you've been hearing isn't random. It's coordinated. Something is using radio frequencies to recruit, for lack of a better word. The initial contact identifies potential targets, and then the signal grows stronger until it can override local broadcasts. My stomach dropped. Override broadcasts? You mean... Anyone listening to your station last night would have heard that signal. And if our research is correct, anyone who hears it and dies within 72 hours doesn't stay dead. Through the window, I could see a helicopter landing in the parking lot. Military personnel began unloading equipment I didn't recognize. There's something else, the CDC woman continued. The pattern is escalating. These outbreaks started months apart, but now they're happening weekly. Whatever's behind the signal, it's learning and adapting. What's the plan? She was quiet for a long moment. Containment, for now. That was 6 hours ago. Since then, I've watched the perimeter around our town grow tighter. Military checkpoints on every road. Helicopters circling overhead. Official statements about unusual weather patterns and temporary evacuation procedures. But I know the truth. And I know it's only a matter of time. Because I can still hear them. Even without a radio, I can hear that voice in the back of my head, clearer than ever.
Soon.
It whispers.
Very soon.
The signal is getting stronger, and I'm starting to think that maybe the dead aren't the real problem. Maybe the signal doesn't just wake them up. Maybe it's been preparing us all along, teaching us, changing us. I've been writing this account for the past 3 months, and my handwriting keeps getting worse. My thoughts feel sluggish, like I'm trying to think through thick fog, and there's a taste in my mouth, metallic and bitter, like old pennies. The CDC woman checked on me an hour ago. She took one look at my eyes and backed away slowly. Then she spoke into her radio. We have a code 7 in the gymnasium. Repeat, code 7. I don't know what that means, but they've moved everywhere away from me now. I'm alone in this corner with just a pad of paper and a pen that's getting harder to hold. The voice is stronger now. Not just whispering, speaking clearly, like someone standing right next to me. Welcome home, it says. We've been waiting for you. I think I'm starting to understand. The signal doesn't just raise the dead. It calls to them. And once you've heard it, really heard it, you become a part of the network. Part of the call. My vision is getting blurry, and my hands are starting to shake. But I can hear them now. All of them. Every person who's ever heard the signal, dead or alive. We're all connected. All part of something bigger. Something that's been spreading for months. Through radio waves and word of mouth. And the simple act of dying within range of the transmission. Something that's not quite ready to reveal itself. But soon. Very soon. The soldier guarding me just radioed for medical assistance. I can see the fear in his eyes as he watches me write. He doesn't understand that it's too late. For me, for this town, for everyone who's heard the signal. We're all part of it now. I can feel my heartbeat slowing, my breathing getting shallow. But I'm not afraid anymore. The voice in my head is gentle now, welcoming. It tells me that death is just the beginning, that there's so much more to see and do once you're free from the limitations of living flesh. It tells me that I'll have important work to do. The pen is slipping from my fingers now. Hard to focus. Hard to remember why I'm writing this down. But I know I need to finish. Need to warn someone. The signal. It's not random. It's not even alien or supernatural or anything like that. It's us. Or what we're becoming. Evolution doesn't just stop because we die. It adapts. It finds new way to spread, new hosts, new methods of reproduction. And radio waves travel far, farther than anyone realizes. I can hear them calling now. All the voices, all the dead. They're telling me to come outside, to join them, to help spread the signal to new places, new frequencies. The soldier is backing away now, speaking urgently into the radio. They know what's happening to me, but they don't know it's already too late. The signal is everywhere now. Every emergency broadcast, every cell phone tower, every satellite uplink. And once you hear it, once you really hear it and understand what it's saying, you can never unhear it. You become part of the transmission. Forever. I'm going outside now. There's work to do. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed that story. I can't remember what movie it was, but they had this crazy movie where they put up like this red tape to stop the frequencies from coming in, or like I really wish I could remember what the movie was called. But this story really, really reminded me of that. That one's a little more rough because they start killing themselves off, but this story reminded me of that a lot. I kind of like bleak endings. The majority of my old videos were all bleak endings. Most of the stories I've written myself are straight up just horrifying, awful endings, and I don't know why that's like my natural default to write for, but this kind of brought me back to that, and this is just something in the interim while we work on the Dead Wake series. So I hope you guys enjoyed the story. Come back next time for some more zombie stories, and as always, remember to face your fears.